Hey guys, it's Brandon Hemming. I just wanted to jump in here. We're going to jump out here. I'm going to use the whiteboard a little bit more so we can kind of talk about what's going on, and I can show you some of these drawings that I have. So what I want to do is today I want to talk about the types of shock. This is going to be a high level piece, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit more, possibly into more when it comes to cardiogenic shock. And so the outline I kind of want you to understand is what we're going to do is I'm going to give you what I call immediate action drills. These are things I gave to paramedic students and EMT students over the years. Things that when you walk into a house, you physically can see right away. You see it, you hear it, you smell it, it's in your environment, that sort of thing. Something that would cue you in to say, I have a problem. We need to fix this. And we need to move, and we need to move now. And so with that same concept, it is exactly the same thing on National Registry. You read the question. Once you know what it's asking, you're going to present yourself. You're going to present the information. You're going to look in the paragraph and figure out what it is that it's asking. What kind of situation is it presenting itself to? And so you should be able to quickly identify what kind of patient you're talking about. And are they load and go or stay and play? I like those. Load and go or stay and play kind of a situation. Then you can do your more detailed assessment to figure out what's going on. With shock, you kind of have to understand what you have to have in place for shock to occur, right? So this big fancy word called homeostasis, that's okay. It just means your body's natural regulation, and it's happening constantly. Ups and downs all the way across the board. And what it's doing is trying to keep every little thing, all your fluids, your vessels, your pump, gas exchange, all those things are trying to keep a nice, even keel so that within a very small range, you're okay. Okay, so that all of your individual cells, your organs, your tissues, everything in your body can effectively work correctly. So you have to have, your book always talks about three things: the pump, the vessels, and the volume. And if you look it up, that's the most simple thing you can always put. I always put in exchange. Okay, and what I mean by this, so pump is your heart, right? If you have a pump problem, okay, and that's how, when you look at shock, okay, and all the different names are out there. You have obstructive shock, you have cardiogenic shock, you have distributive shock, which then entails all of these other things like sepsis and anaphylaxis and neurogenic shock and that sort of thing, right? So it encompasses a whole bunch of things. But on a very basic level, if you have a pump problem, cardiogenic shock, pump problem, heart, right? Your vessels themselves have to be intact so that it can transport all this volume, this blood, this oxygen, the waste products all over the body and back to the lungs. It has to have that intact, which means the regulation of, right? So it means that the size and the diameter of your blood vessels needs to be able to be controlled, right? So it has to be able to squeeze, and it has to be able to dilate based on whatever the situation may be, okay? The vessels also have to, you go through here and you have this vessel going through, and all of a sudden you get a rupture, a bleed, right? Some sort of bleeding internally, whether that's bleeding externally, it's that vessel is ruptured, right? So you have to have that vessel that's intact, okay? The volume kind of, you can break those into two different parts. There's blood and there's plasma. It really is the kind of the two big volume expanders, if you will, within what we're talking about here, okay? So you have to have plenty of blood volume, which is your red blood cells and all that good stuff, which carries oxygen to the cells, picks up the CO2, it takes it back to the lungs, right, to get rid of it, and to kind of pick up that process all over again. And so the volume has to be there. It could be from burns, third spacing. If the volume, the plasma, leaves inside the cells, inside the arteries and the veins, guess what? You have a problem. Okay, that volume is not enough. Those things, when you have a vessel problem, you're kind of thinking more along the lines of, it can be a relative hypovolemia, right? And but vessels, if you think about the regulation of, we're thinking neurogenic shock. If you think of volume, you're thinking of hypovolemia, and that not enough volume. Exchange is something that has to happen as well. You have to be able to do your gas exchange. I'm kind of going backwards here, so bear with me. But you have to be able to take and pump blood from your heart over to the lungs, which is unoxygenated, so that they can get rid of the CO2 and it actually can do the individual pick up CO2, bring it back to the heart. Well, then also when it comes back over here to your heart, right? So when you get into your heart, you have to be able to pump blood once you get good oxygenated blood to the individual cells, right? All the way down to the individual cells so that you can do the gas exchange there too. Without those things, you can throw in a whole bunch of other issues. So you throw in, could be a pulmonary embolism, that's obstruction, right? That's causing a obstruction in the gas flow. They don't really throw these into shock, but it is a category. If you ever research shock, there's actually over 100 different types of shock that are out there. But if you kind of think of this in a holistic manner, it kind of makes sense. If I can't exchange oxygen, get rid of CO2 here, because I've got they go from the pulmonary artery, which carries unoxygenated blood in the body, and it gets smaller and smaller, all the way down to the arterioles. Well, and there's a big giant clot blocking the way. It's not going to be able to exchange gas. Okay? So just think about that. And then when you come down to the individual cells, things like poisonings, carbon monoxide poisoning, all those different things, cyanide, all those things that will upload directly to a red blood cell to block the perfusion at the cellular level, you have a relative type of shock as well. Okay? So holistically think about that. So I hope this helped you out a little bit, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.